Hello, welcome to this video, welcome to my channel. My name is Emma and today I'm going to be doing the Dark Academia book tag. This book tag was created by Emma from Emmy Reads and Carolyn from Carolyn Marie Reads, and they are both part of the Dark Academics book club, who I love to watch their live shows every month and follow along with what they're reading. And if you don't, I highly recommend that you do. They always have really interesting thoughts and their live shows are always funny and full of fun discussions and things, so I really recommend those. But this book tag is all about dark academia as an aesthetic. It is an aesthetic that I attempt to emulate as much as I possibly can, but sometimes I just love color too much. This tag has 13 questions along with a rapid fire section, but before we get into those, I want to sort of establish my academic standing so that we are clear on where I'm coming from. I am currently a senior in college earning a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology in undergrad, so that's what I'm doing. Now let's get into the questions. The first question is, what is your favorite academia or dark book and movie? My favorite new dark book, which I think might be the darkest book that I've read. I don't read very many horror books and I am new to the dark academia genre and I haven't read very many dark academia books. I've read one that I liked and one that I didn't like. But I'm going to choose for this The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is quickly becoming one of my very favorite books. The more that I think about it and the more time that passes since I have read it, I am falling more in love with it the more time is passing since I've read it. The Picture of Dorian Gray is about a young man who's about 21, named Dorian Gray, whose friend, who's a painter, Basil Hallward, paints a portrait of Dorian, and when he sees this portrait he realizes how truly attractive and beautiful he really is, and not wanting to lose this, he becomes incredibly anxious about growing old, and over time he decides to live the luxurious hedonistic life that he wants, and over time his portrait ends up taking on the physical manifestations of his sins while Dorian remains young and beautiful through mystical means that are unknown to the reader. This is one of my favorite books that I've read in the last few months, and I think about it almost every day. I talk about it in my classes. I actually mentioned it in a psychology class yesterday as relevant to the subject matter, and part of my iOS 14 Dark Academia spread is based around The Picture of Dorian Gray, so I definitely recommend this book, and also it fits my prompt. In terms of a dark or academic movie, I unfortunately have not had the chance to watch very many dark academia movies yet, but the one I have seen, I will have to say is my favorite, is Dead Poets Society. It's the classic, it's the quintessential, it is the cliche, but I thought it was great. Another dark movie that has such to do with language and storytelling is Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. It's based on a book, and the book is based on a true story, which I have not yet read, but I hope to. It's set in Savannah, Georgia, and it is all about murder, lust, intrigue, and journaling it all. Not journaling, but like journalizing, like writing about it as a journalist. Why was that so hard to figure out? But I really do love that movie. It is not academic, but it is rather dark. The second question is, what dead poet would you like to have a drink with? For this, I'm going to choose Robert Browning. We are currently studying his poetry in my Victorian literature class, and I've never read any of his work before this class, but I absolutely adore it. He does all of these pathological dramatic monologue character study poems, and I think they're so interesting, and I would really like to talk to him and pick his mind about the psychology of his characters and the psychology of how he comes up with his characters and how he decides what he's going to do with them. As a studier of psychology, as a psychology student, and as someone who is very interested in creative fields as well, I am very, very interested in how people come about their grand discoveries in their creative fields. So I would love to sit with Robert Browning and talk to him about his character studies. The next question is your favorite painting or sculpture. My favorite painting is on the wall behind me in print form. It's The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. I love the emotion and the color and the merging of the two lovers in the painting. I just think it's completely beautiful, and I have it on my wall in print form, obviously, and I also have spent a considerable amount of time just like looking at it online before I got that print, but I would absolutely love to see it in person because it is made with gold foil, and so I just think that there cannot be any experience comparable to seeing the kiss in person and seeing the light dance off of the gold foil. An honorable mention for my favorite painting is School of Athens by Raphael, which was only recently dethroned by the kiss. I just think that the whole concept of the School of Athens painting is absolutely amazing. It is a conference between philosophers and mathematicians and inventors of things that would never actually happen in real life because all of the people existed at different times, but somehow they're all together in the same room discussing things, coming up with new ideas, telling each other about their ideas. There's some very cool architecture and sculpture inside the painting as well, and I just think that it's totally fascinating. In terms of favorite sculpture, I love absolutely anything marble, but the one that I'm going to choose for this is Laocoon and his sons, also known as the Laocoon group, which was unearthed in Rome in 1509. I think. I love seeing Greek mythology and marble sculptures in particular because I think there's something so intensely emotional and dramatic about most of Greek mythology that can only be captured in marble sculpture. Marble sculpture is such a difficult and refined art, and marble sculpturists always end up somehow creating such drama and intensity and emotion and movement out of big blocks of stone. Marble sculptures are so fascinating to me because they are such a marvel of artistry. The next question is, what is your favorite architectural marvel? I puzzled over this one for a little bit, and then I realized I'm completely obsessed with the Chartres Cathedral. It is asymmetrical, it is Gothic, and it is more modern, and it is incredible. There are a couple of things that I really love about the Chartres Cathedral, one of them being the facade. Half of the facade burned down in 1194, and all that was left was the Gothic tower that you see on the west side. But then instead of building another tower on the facade to match, they just built the second tower in the design of the day, which is a perplexing decision to me, but it's still so cool. It makes it so cool looking. The other thing that I love about the Chartres Cathedral is the intricacy of the decoration. There are 176 stained glass windows in the cathedral, and the facade, in particular the portals and the inside of the cathedral, is absolutely covered in sculpture, and I just would absolutely love to visit and spend an entire day, multiple days, an entire week just studying all of the sculpture and the stained glass. The next question is, what Shakespeare play would you most want to play the lead in? I think most people would want to survive their experience of playing in a Shakespeare play, but I would love to play Ophelia in Hamlet. Hamlet and Much Ado About Nothing are constantly competing for my favorite Shakespeare play spot. Depending on how tragic or comedic I'm feeling that day, I may give you a different answer, but I absolutely adore Hamlet, and I love the character of Ophelia. I think she's so interesting, and there's so much to unpack there. In one of the theater classes that I took when I was a freshman in college, we had to choose a Shakespeare monologue to perform, and I chose one of Ophelia's Going Mad monologues. And approaching the text not from a reader perspective, but from an actor perspective, cracked it open and showed me so many more possibilities and so much complexity to Ophelia, who can be played down as just a crazy lady. There's so much behind her going mad, so much trauma, so much heartbreak, and I would love to get a chance at playing this young girl as she moves from naivety and innocence and wide-eyed wonder at love to death from insanity. Next, how many languages do you speak, and which language would you most like to learn? Obviously right now I am speaking English, it is my native language, mais aussi je parle un peu de français. J'ai étudié le français à l'école et j'espère que mon français va améliorer. I try really hard at French, and I'm hoping that one thing that I can do coming up, since I'm not nearly as busy as I used to be with school this semester, is to work on my French, watch French movies and listen to French music and read in French, and sort of have that build that up as a lifelong skill. The language that I would most like to learn is Italian. I think Italian sounds so beautiful and the country is so beautiful, and I would just love to be able to go to Italy and navigate my way around as a competent speaker without a translator. The next question is, what is your favorite quote? This one was a little bit hard because I'm not necessarily someone who is constantly looking for quotes. I mainly enjoy language in its context, and when quotes are pulled out, they tend to lose a little bit of value for me. But there are a significant amount of quotes that I have pulled from poetry that I've read. I really like to pull things out of poetry and meditate on them. Not meditate necessarily, but sort of chew on them and see what I can continue to glean as I mull them over and over in my mind. And so my favorite book of poetry, I decided to pull out Leaves of Grass and see what I could find, and I found this quote from the poem I Celebrate Myself. Long enough have you dreamed contemptible dreams. Now I wash the gum from your eyes. You must habit yourself to the dazzle of the light and of every moment of your life. This quote has been one of the ones that, as I have mulled over Walt Whitman's poetry, has been incredibly heartening and inspirational for me as I am transitioning from teenagehood into adulthood and the things that I'm personally going through with that. Walt Whitman in particular, and in particular the specific quotes and passages that I have really fallen in love with, have been very encouraging and inspirational in this period of my life. Next, which fictional character's death is your ideal way to go? Now, I did say I love Hamlet, and I think that Ophelia's death would be pretty nice. I mean, she just sort of goes crazy and falls into the river and drifts away, and she's covered in flowers and she's wearing a beautiful gown, and she just sort of floats away into oblivion. Now, Ophelia's death is founded by a great deal of heartbreak and trauma, so maybe instead I would go for something quick and easy, like the guillotine death that happens at the end of my favorite book, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Very last page, very last event of the book is a death by guillotine, and I won't tell you which character it is because that will spoil the whole book. But, well, the reason for this death is also an intense amount of heartbreak. So I guess if I'm choosing my death, I'm just destined to die by heartbreak because I can't seem to choose any other. Next question, what university or college would you most like to attend? I think for this, I'm going to choose Yale University after a considerable amount of deliberation. It is the closest thing to Hogwarts that I have in my country, and even though I think it would be so fun to travel to Scotland and to go to the University of Edinburgh or to go to Oxford or Cambridge in England, I am a bit of a practical person by nature most of the time, and so I think I can't take out from this consideration the idea that it would be really, really difficult for me to support myself as well as attend graduate school or a PhD program in another country. So I think I am going to choose Yale. This is actually a school that I do plan on applying to for grad school, and we'll see what happens. Next, what is your murder weapon or murder method of choice? As a true Agatha Christie fan, I'm going to have to say poison slipped into your drink or your food at a dinner party. I do realize that it is very easy to trace this back to the culprit. Only certain people come in contact with the food, and so if you're not supposed to come in contact with the food, you can be easily incriminated. However, I do think that I would be okay with that, because for me to actually kill someone, I must have really, really been hurt really terribly, and I would probably be okay with being caught for it because I would feel so guilty. Next question, what mythology would you most like to be a part of? I think I'm gonna go for Norse mythology. I don't think I really have any chance of dying in battle and going to Valhalla because I am not really a warrior type, but I do think that there are plenty of other good places to go after you die in Norse mythology, which is comforting even if you're not a warrior. So I've got that going for me. Next, if you had a PhD, what would you choose to do it on? This is something I've actually been thinking about a bit recently, and obviously I do want to continue my study of psychology through a master's and ideally a PhD program, but I don't think that psychology is a specific enough topic for this question. And so I think if I had to choose right now, I would choose to do my PhD research on personality. I have a high amount of fascination with personalities and how people's personalities interact with the environment, but I also have a lot of fascination with how people become the adult versions of themselves. What happens to a child and how does their personality interact with those experiences in that environment, which turns them from their child or teenage selves into the adult that they become. And so I think I would like to do some sort of research surrounding personality in adolescence to adulthood and that transition there, if that makes any sense. And the last big question, which fictional character would you die for? In my favorite book, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, there is a man named Sidney Carton, and I think that he needs a hug and he needs an authentic relationship with someone who can see him for who he truly is and reciprocate an authentic, genuine relationship with him and support him in his struggles. But if that is not an option, I would die for Sidney Carton. Now it's time for the rapid fire questions. I'm just going to read them off and then repeat the choice that I have. There are 2 options on each of these, so I'm just gonna go for it. Leather-bound or cloth-bound books? Cloth-bound. Dog-earing pages or highlighting pages? Dog earring. Sculptures or paintings? Paintings. Piano or violin? Violin. Film or theater? Theater. Every day of the week for the rest of my life. Poetry or prose? Prose. Museums or bookshops? Museums. Smell of books or smell of coffee and tea? Smell of coffee and tea. Fountain pen or typewriter? Typewriter. I hadn't picked that one beforehand. And new or used books? New books. All right, that is the tag. Thank you so much for watching this video and hanging out with me today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you will leave me a comment letting me know either your responses to some of these questions or a link to a video that you made with the Dark Academia book tag. I would love to watch it and love to talk all things Dark Academia aesthetic with you. I hope you are doing well. If you're not, I hope it gets better soon, and I hope that you love what you're reading. Bye, I'll see you soon.